Shibano and Associates conducted research on what are the key ingredients to increasing intrinsic motivation within a group setting. And what they came up with are the key 3 ingredients to enhancing the experience via intrinsic motivation of participants within a group are knowledge, stimulation, and accomplishment. Now, before we dive into what exactly do they mean by that, and even more important, how do we apply that, let's talk about why intrinsic motivation is so absolutely critical in terms of other forms of motivation we talk about quite frequently in our industry. Intrinsic motivation, according to DC and Ryan in their self-determination theory, is when we do something, not because of a result that's out there in the future, but because of our experience and the enjoyment that experience elicits right here and now. In other words, the payoff is in the process. When we're intrinsically motivated, we can't discern where play ends and work begins. And if you think about the connotations that has and the implications that has, not only for us, but for our participants, that means that unless something happens, kind of like a rock in the stream of our lives that redirect the course of our lives extremely and suddenly because of something unexpected, we're likely to keep doing something with a lot of enthusiasm and vigor as well when we're doing it because we're intrinsically motivated. Intrinsic motivation is not something that we drag ourselves out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning because we have to do it. It's because we get to do it that we continually and quite gleefully engage in it. Now, let's get to the 3 criteria, because if we want to do anything, the key to creating a masterpiece, whether that's a work of art or whether that's a recipe, is knowing the ingredients. But it's not enough to know the ingredients. We have to know in what proportion in one another the ingredients are applied, what quantity, and what order. And if we get all of those factors correct, well, we can create a masterpiece or a brilliant recipe the same way a master chef can. So the first ingredient, let's stick with knowledge. Knowledge is the ability in relation to intrinsic motivation to learn something new that challenges us, that pushes us not too far beyond our comfort zone, but right on the outer lip of it. This is when I come into class and the instructor is moving through all of the rows and every so often stops right in front of me and gives me one cue, not just to correct me, but to draw me out of what I've been doing in previous classes, showing me that I could get just a little bit better at the class, not if I stick with it for another week or another month, but right now if I just follow his or her lead. And that's important. Now, stimulation connects to knowledge because it's not just what I'm doing and how I'm being drawn out of my comfort zone, but what's the emotional experience I get from the movement patterns themselves, from the music, from the energy and leadership of the instructor, as well as the interpersonal dynamics that's created through affiliation because I am part of a tribe, whether that tribe is 25, 30, or 50 people deep inside of the class. And to elicit that feeling of tribe, you don't need 30 people. Sometimes you just need as little as 7 people in the room to get that feeling going. So in other words, how often do we move through the room and get right into the back row, engage face to face, belly to belly, if you will, with the person back there, and then move all the way back to our stage up front? Because just by moving through the room, we do something unexpected. And our brain, the reticular activation system, says, hey, that was novel. I didn't expect him or her to do that. Pay attention. And what that does is it increases our level of awareness and stimulation and keeps us constantly engaged. And the last thing that Shibano and Associates were talking about is accomplishment. Now, this doesn't mean what am I going to accomplish 6 months from now as a result of attending your group exercise class. This means, what do I feel I've accomplished in this particular class 2 minutes after the class is over and I'm on my way back to the locker room? Now, I've witnessed group exercise instructors experimenting with setting expectation. They frame the class when they're in the front of the room. And this could be a great time to talk about our originating intention at 24-Hour Fitness. Well, what's our originating intention? It's kind of strange language. Originating intention goes well beyond meaning, purpose, or mission, which is simply the answer to the question, why do we as a company or even a department or a class exist? Originating intention is what is it that we or an individual, but in this case a body of 24-Hour Fitness holds so sacred that we want everyone within our circle of influence to experience that reality of the world, and we hold that space for them, whether that's the space between us and our client out on a fitness floor, or even more dynamically, the space we have within the room when we're teaching. And our originating intention at 24-Hour Fitness is that you can have what you truly want. And when I say you, I'm not just talking to you watching this, but I am. You're included in this, absolutely. I'm talking to every single team member and every member, and literally everyone within the reach of the industry overall. So if we are holding the space, you can have what you truly want. And accomplishment is not something that's long-term or distal, 3, 6 months, a year away, but as proximal as 2 minutes after the class, we can frame that by getting up in front of the class and sharing that our intention for every single one of our members is that you can have what you truly want. And then ask them, what are you feeling right now? You don't have to respond. Just get in touch with your body as you walk in the room before class starts. Think about that nervous anticipation. Think about everything you've done in your day so far and where you're going right after you leave this club, and what the importance of that destination, of that activity, the domain in your life is for the satisfaction of your life. And once you identify what you're feeling, quantify the intensity. Is it a level 5, somewhere in the middle? Is it 6, 7? Is it 8 or 9, so is it extreme? And then ask your class participants to imagine who they are at that level of motion, at that level of intensity, going to their very next destination. How do they show up in having what they truly want at work? Maybe it's a luncheon and they're going to meet some friends. Who are they socially at that level of emotion, that level of intensity? Who are they for their family, their partner, their children? Who are they for themselves? And then leave it there and have them go through the class. And as they're cooling down, ask them to revisit it. Remember when we prompted you to become aware of what's going on in your body, how you feel, how you're moving, the level of tension through your body, and the intensity? Think about it now. Where are you now? What's the emotion? What's that feeling? And what's the intensity? And then do contrast. So as you go from the club to wherever in your life your journey's taking you next, how do you show up at this emotional state, at this level of intensity, versus where you were when you first walked into class? And this is powerful because movement is one of the most profound and expeditious influencers of how we feel, and how we feel is one of the most expeditious and profound influencers of how we behave, and behaviors bring about consequences. So what we're doing is contrasting who they are and where they are when they come in versus when they're leaving a class, and then we're bringing their attention to how much more powerfully they show up in the emotional state and intensity post-class versus pre-class, and it connects each class right then and there to how that person can have what they truly want. Not how you can have what you truly want after 6 months of class, although we definitely want to focus on that, but how simply attending a class that's fun and engaging and incorporates tribe and affiliation can help you have more of what you truly want right now. And that increases the recency or proximity of the reward they experience from engaging in group. And that brings to fruition the 3 elements of knowledge stimulation and accomplishment that Shabano and Associates found to be the most provocative in not only provoking great experiences, but evoking those experiences within a dynamic